You've been asking for it, so I thought it was about time I delivered. We have a small project to tackle together today. Hi everyone, it's Hannah Catherine Brand with Edie's Craft Room here. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to be making the fold and stitch leaf topper. I made a fun visit to a Straight Stitch, which is a quilt shop in Orrington, Maine, and I could not leave one of my rare opportunities to visit a brick and mortar quilt shop without making a purchase. So let's jump into what I got and get into the sewing to make this fun table topper. Some small project quilting goodies. I cannot wait to show you what I got. So let's start with the pattern just so you can see exactly what it is we will be making. This is the fold and stitch leaf topper from Poorhouse Quilt Designs, and hopefully you can see that well. This is designed by Christine Poor, and it says, "Let your creative spirit soar with this nature-inspired table topper, stitched together to reveal secondary leaves. Another fold and stitch project designed for gift giving as well as for your own table." So here you can see they use some beautiful batiks to make this flower with a candle in the center. I picked out some different fabrics, and now let me take the opportunity to show those to you because they are so pretty and a little bit different than what I have typically used in the past. So I believe all of these fabrics are from, let's see, Quilting Treasures is the name of the company. And I think they are just so lovely. Very fall. And I do love fall. It's so funny because I feel like I don't really decorate with these colors, but I just think this is a gorgeous selection of fabrics and the quality is really, really good. Now, the quilt shop was kind enough to put some labels on here. So I believe this is the Canterbury design here from Quilting Treasures. And then let's see, here we have Ophelia mini buds. Then we have the Ophelia decorative leaf. This is Ophelia packed Jacobine. I hope I'm saying that right. Then we have a different Ophelia decorative leaf. And then finally another Canterbury. So that's just what the stickers say. Hopefully though, with knowing that this is from Quilting Treasures Fabrics, and let's see, it looks like they have a website. This is not a brand that I have ever worked with before. The online fabric shops that I tend to buy from, I don't believe carry this brand. So that's what's so fun to me about going to different brick and mortar quilt shops when I travel, is that I get the opportunity to see new brands and see things that I haven't seen before. Let's see, we are not having any luck finding a selvage with that website on here. Give me just a moment and I'll speed this up. Oh, there we go. No need to speed it up. So QT Fabrics, you can find them at www.qtfabrics.com. And hopefully those names that I just listed off will be helpful for you. So obviously these have been in my suitcase. They need some pressing, but that's a preview of the fabrics that we're going to be working with. I also picked up these, and again, I'm not sure how you pronounce this, Bosal, but you get the point. Foam fiber interfacing and crafts. This is the NR form, unique single-sided fusible foam stabilizer heart leaf. So it looks like there are 8 of them, 5 by 8 inches, single-side fusible. Soft and formable, easy to stitch and needle friendly. So I'm hoping that this is going to make the process that much better. You can kind of see the thickness there, and it definitely feels like some good foam. So I figured that would make things easier. and they had a great little display and wanted to just pick up whatever would be recommended for this project because this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So we got just a variety of fabrics. These do not read traditionally like flowers and petals and stems and leaves for sure, unlike the model here, but I'm still hoping that it's going to turn out beautifully and look great on a fall table. So you can just kind of ignore the recommended, I guess, descriptions here for these purposes, although for your own, if you want it to look like this could be helpful. And so I just went ahead and got, I believe this is just half yard cuts, although they were fairly generous on one of them. The quilt shop owner joked with me, we were chatting and she gave me a little extra, which was very kind of her. So we will have a little bit more to work with on some of these fabrics, and I'm hoping a little bit left over. They also recommend, of course, these leaf shapes, so we are using that. And then I have some Heat and Bond Lite on order from Amazon, same day shipping. So hopefully by the time we reach the end of this project or that step, it will be here at my door. That is one nice thing about living close to an Amazon distribution center. And then some contrasting thread for applique stitching. Let me go through my drawers actually real quickly. You can hear me shuffling around back here. I have a lovely thread kit. This is Madeira, and this is the Poly Neon machine embroidery and quilting thread. It is 100% polyester. This was actually gifted to me along with my old faff, which will definitely be making an appearance in this video, and very kindly again was given to me. And so I use this for just a variety of projects. I don't use it for my piecing thread, but for applique, I find that it is very helpful. And I'm looking at some of these colors, and I think something like this or this, that's gonna be, pop a little bit. This reminds me of Donna Jordan when she showed her threads before she would quilt her projects. But I'm thinking one of these two, probably this one, will look lovely for the applique here. But I will go ahead and hold off because we still have a little bit before we get to that step. But thankfully, I have this in my stash of supplies. And then looking here, template or plastic cardstock to make your own template. They have the templates here, and then I also just have some cardstock on hand, so that's what I will be using. And then let's see what else. Size 80 needle, yep, got that. Point turner, rotary cutter, and mat, and then a temporary marking pen. So I think we are set to go. Also, Derry, New Hampshire, we have some dear friends that live there too. So really funny. This is definitely a New England project, right? So now that we have all of our materials accounted for, let's get sewing. I don't think you can go wrong here, but I have spent quite a few minutes trying to decide which one of these two fabrics I want for what they're calling the front of the leaf and then the back of the leaf. And I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to decide, but I'm thinking because this is a larger scale print and you're seeing a little bit more surface area here, I'm going to go with this for the back and then this orange for the front. So that like bright orange is outlining it. And then this will kind of be pops of this lighter color. So hopefully that is a good choice. Now I definitely need to iron all of this. So I am going to get started here on my pressing mat. Pressing and cutting this fabric for this project is so easy. If you are someone who does not like these stages of the sewing process, this project is for you. You only have two fabrics. They're relatively small, so very manageable. And all I did was just made them nice and flat and beautiful, and then took them to my cutting board, cut some strips, and then just subcut the pieces I needed, which thankfully was not very many. So you are done fairly quickly. I'm so excited because I just made a test leaf to make sure I was going to show you this the right way. and I love it. I am hooked. So I have my front and back. Probably not a bad idea for these to be labeled because I could see it being very easy to mix them up, but I just have them laid out here. So the first fabric that you're going to work with for these leaves is your back rectangle. So I am going to take one of these, and I actually just have some parchment paper here on my wool pressing mat just for extra protection. It was a great suggestion by the pattern. And then I'm going to take one of these foam leaves out here, and I am going to put the sticky side on the wrong side of the fabric and just center everything up, and then flip it around, and I'm going to flip it so it's horizontal so you can see it all, and just put that right there. So now it is time just to press it and make sure that adhesive is sticking to the fabric. And let me tell y'all, if you are using this brand of foam or these petals specifically, it gets a little stinky. So just be aware. I'm not sure what chemicals you're going to be breathing in, but I feel like those of us who like arts and crafts, we've already accepted that, if that's the end of us, then we're going to go happy. All right, so I think we are fairly sticky. Just gonna do a little check. Yep, I might get that in just one more press. Okay, so now I have this done, and I'm gonna just put this aside for a minute so it can cool. And then I'm gonna be taking one of my front fabrics and folding it in half, and I'm making it so that the fold is here at the bottom. And then I'm going to take a ruler and my marking pin, and I am marking this at, let's see, it'll be 4 inches away from the side and 1.25 inches from the top. So I'm just going to line all of this up, and this is important because you are marking here where you are going to cut your slit to turn this inside out. So I'm just using a friction pen. You could use a pencil or chalk or whatever marking tool. This is just what I have on hand. And there I have my slit. So now I just cut it, and you are cutting both layers of fabric. The reason they are having you do this is because this is, keep in mind, this is truly the front of your leaf, but they're having you do it like this because the applique is going to be on top of this. So they're just, keeping you safe. So this is not going to show up. So now that that is done, I am actually just going to give this one more press because I created quite a little bit of a crease there. And it's okay that my marking went away. And now it is time to use my leaf. So I'm following my instructions. I'm positioning the right side of the front rectangle with the slit on the right. So right here, and let me move this up for you. So there's my slit, it's on the right. Then I'm placing the back rectangle on top like this. I'm just lining up my corners, and it doesn't have to be exact, but you want it to be fairly close. And then I'm just going to pin to hold everything in place. And I feel fairly confident that you could use like an applique glue or something to secure it, but I just have some pins, so I'm going to use that to keep everything together. And then the next step is really just to stitch around the leaf. They recommend that you use a shorter stitch length. I am using 1.5, which has been the stitch length that I have just preferred for smaller projects, for things that I press open. Because this is being turned inside out, I just would prefer it to take a little extra time in sewing and just feel really confident in my seams. So let's take it to the sewing machine. We'll sew around the shape. It's at the edge of the shape, not through it. And again, using that short stitch length. Now that we've finished stitching, it's time to trim this all up. So I'm just going to take my pins out, and you can see we have our stitch line here. So I am just going to take my scissors, and I'm cutting about a 1/4 inch away from my seam, just eyeballing things. And I apologize if it's not the best view on the camera. I'm trying to watch what I'm cutting versus the viewfinder, so pardon me. Hopefully this won't take too long. There's just something really special about cutting fabric with scissors. I don't know if it's the sound or just the feeling. I love it. And then I'm just gonna cut right above there just to reduce some bulk. So now we have our leaf, and this is where that slit is going to come in handy, because now it's time to turn our leaf friend inside out. This part always makes me nervous when I'm appliquing, because I'm afraid I'm just going to like ruin everything, and I have to remind myself it's fabric and it's fine. It can do that. Okay, so I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of push everything through at first. Now, the pattern recommends if you have a point turner, using that at this point. I actually don't have one of those, but I do have this little brush for my sewing machine, and I feel like this tip actually works really well. This was something Amazon actually could not get to me same day. It was the point turner. They wanted me to wait 3 days, which, you know, if you had told me even 20 years ago, that would be great. But we do live in a world of instant gratification. So I was able to be resourceful and find something else that worked. So I'm just gonna punch out my seams here. And then this definitely needs some help down here. I want to make sure this part of the leaf is nice and pointy. There we go. Just kind of also making sure that seam allowance is laying nice and flat. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to take my iron and just press everything so it's nice and, whoops, goodness. Gotta be careful. Should probably have moved that anyway. It's nice and beautiful. It's looking really good. Let's see. This looks like it still needs a little help. Whoa, that's hot. All right, there we have it. So there I have 2 of these done, and I believe 6 more to go. So I will just be repeating that process. My heat and bond made it, so now it's time to do some tracing. So I just put the heat and bond over the template in my pattern, and I'm going to do some tracing. So I just have my mechanical pencil, and I am going to just trace the lines on the paper side. Okay, it's about right. And then I'm going to take a ruler. Let's see, this might not be long enough. And then just use that to help guide me for some of these lines here. I don't trust myself to draw straight lines. See, even with a ruler, it's a little, it's a little wiggly. Okay. And then we have our big one. Also a little hard to see with the camera where it is, but I think that's about right. Yep, almost there. And then they also recommend just labeling these. So that's A, this is C, D, and B. And then I'm just going to make 7 more of those for 8 total, which will be all I will need for my petals. Y'all, I am having so much fun with this. I actually stayed up late last night and completed the rest of my petals, but I had to force myself to stop and save these last 2 so we could do them together and you could see how it all comes together. So these are our final 2 petals, and the way that you get all of them together is once you cut up your heat and bond fabric petals, you then just like pick different fabrics. So that's why they have you label everything A, B, C, D. And so I just put some random ones together. It actually worked out really well because I had 4 fabrics left after I used my 2 for the front and back of these petals. And so because there were 4 little quadrants, it was really easy to mix and match everything. So here are my last 2 laid out, ready to go. So what I'll do is I'll take one of these petals with the little slit right here where I had to turn everything inside out. Sorry about that. And then what we'll do is use one of these. So this is our D portion of the petal. And I am just going to take off the backing of the heat and bond like that. And then try my best to center this. They say that it doesn't matter too much. Let's see. But I'm trying to keep this really in the center and then also make sure there's an even amount of, front fabric showing. One thing I do want to tell you about, just a little tip. I don't know if it was necessarily just this fabric or, if other fabrics would do this, but when I was turning my fabric inside out, I would kind of get this pull right here. And unfortunately, it is white, so you can kind of see it. Now, I think on the final product, it's going to be very difficult to see, especially after I do the applique, but just be careful with that. I found it was better for me to put most of my tension on the bottom part of the slit here where it's a little bit wider and will be fully covered up. But you do see that a little bit. So just be careful until you figure out if that's an issue for your fabric or not. All right, so that looks pretty good. And I have my slit covered up. So now I'm just going to adhere it to my petal. Excellent. And then now I will do B. Honestly, this is the hardest part. And I do have a little bit of nails, so okay. There's that one. Just adhering it down. That looks good. Pressing. I'm loving the way all these fabrics look together. It's scrappy, but it still goes together. And it's definitely more of an abstract flower. I mean, you know, there's certainly no flowers like this in the wild, but I think it's still really fun. Next, I'll take part A. And the pattern does say, you know, to put everything, all these pieces next to each other, but it's okay if things, you know, don't tear up. Excuse me. It's okay if things don't tear up completely flush, which, you know, there is a little bit of margin of error just because you're tracing and cutting. But actually, this one's turning out beautifully. We'll press. And then we have our last piece. These small ones are always the hardest. Okay. There we go. I love how it's just like a fabric sticker. So fun. Okay. So you see we have a little bit of a spot there, but apparently that's okay, so I'm going to trust it. And there is our petal. So we'll do that one more time. I'm going to just give this a good press. But hopefully by this point, you get the idea. I'm not going to lie, this pattern, you know, when I saw the finished product, I was like, oh, I can make that. And then when I looked at the pattern for the first and I'll be honest, second and third time, I was a little bit intimidated. Just, you know, it's not like quilting or traditional piecing, if you will, where it's kind of the same stuff over and over again. And once you kind of master some of the repetitive techniques, you know, I can look at a quilt pattern and for the most part kind of understand how everything came together, although designers do sometimes surprise me. But for something like this, you know, I had no idea. These sewing projects are not something that I'm doing as commonly. And so reading everything together and then not having a video for it and all of that, I just panicked a little bit. But I took my time. I went step by step. And things are turning out really well. And we're getting close to the end, believe it or not. That is another fun thing about sewing projects versus, you know, making a quilt, is that you can do things so much faster. You know, you can complete it a lot faster. Quilts generally take a lot longer. And so it is fun to be able to do something in a day. You could definitely do this in a day, although I'm splitting it up into 2. Also the cost. You all know quilting, sewing, most arts and crafts hobbies are not cheap. Whereas I was able to get all of the supplies for this, I think for around $50, which is great, especially, you know, with a quilt, you're spending, depending upon the size, I mean, several hundred to sometimes more. All right, we have our last piece here. There we go. Ooh, I can't wait to show you all of them. I'll line that up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to lay out all 8 of these for you so you can just see how they vary. Do it like this. Look how Pretty. All right, now we have our petals done. We have our old friend here for our applique. So the first stitch we're gonna do is just a straight stitch, but I wanted to do it on this machine, so I only had to wind one bobbin because we're using some different thread than my normal piecing thread. So I am just going to stitch fairly close to the edges of my different pieces, and I have a little marking on this foot that I am using just to help me with consistency so my stitches look neat. And you are supposed to do this bit before you do your zigzag stitch, which is just going to be around the edges of your pieces. So when I get to the end, I just leave my needle down, turn my petal, and continue on, and you do these inside lines for all of the pieces. I'm not really doing them in any rhyme or reason, just kind of what's convenient to stitch as I go. Oops, we can go a little further. Sometimes with the patterns in the fabric, it's a little hard to see when I'm at the end, especially when the patterns are similar. But we'll just continue this across all of our pieces. And then we get something, whoops, that didn't cut. We'll look at that later. But we get something that looks like, let's see, so you can see it. It looks like this. And it's actually really neat because on the back side, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it on the camera, but it almost looks like the stem of a leaf, which I think is really cool. I'll trim my threads, don't worry, but these are turning out beautifully. Now that I've done all my straight stitching, I'm going to change my stitch just to a zigzag, and the pattern recommends that you make this stitch at a 3 width and a 1.5 height, I guess. So I will take one of my finished pieces and just stitch around with my zigzag stitch. So I'll just show you what that looks like. And I'm just putting the edge of that fabric, the applique fabric, in between my foot, just to help me guide it. And just going all around the edges. I love applique. It's just such a different technique than traditional piecing and just such a beautiful effect. So interesting and another really fun way to work with fabric. I'm just slowing down now that I'm at a curve. I'm gonna just turn that. This machine does not love this thread very much. I have checked my bobbin and my threading techniques so many times, but my thread just keeps breaking. So we are really pushing our luck here in that we were able to do this entire outline without any breaking. This is great. Awesome. So there is our finished leaf, and you can't see that super well because of the light. So I will show you all of them when I have them done. With all of my petals stitched up, it's now time to attach them to each other. So in the pattern, you receive a template. Let me grab it. And the template looks like this. This is showcasing your stitching line. So I just traced this onto a piece of notebook paper. The pattern says that you can use cardstock or tracing paper or something like that, but I, instead of opting to use cardstock, decided just to use the notebook paper because the cardstock was too thick to be able to trace it. So it might work if you have one of those Lite boards, but I don't have one of those, so that's what I used, and this has just worked fine. So what you do, and I've already done a few, is just line up your template on your finished petal, and what happens is you get this nice little guide here, and I just take one of my friction pins to mark, there we go, everything's lined up, to mark that line. Again, this is your stitching line, and they do say to mark the front of your petals. So now I have all of my petals with that line there. And what I think is going to be our next step is to sew them together so that we'll be creating our little leaves. Can you believe it? We are almost done with this project. So the last part, as I said before, is to make sure all of our petals are sewn together. So the pattern recommends that you do this in sets of 4. So you'll have 2 sets of 4. So we have our petals here, and all that you do is just stitch them together. So what I did was I just laid mine out to make sure that I had a good repetition of fabrics and I didn't have 2 of the same too close together. And so then the next step is to take your petal. So we have our line right here, and then you just put them back sides together, line everything up, and then take a wonder clip. That's going to make things easier just to hold them together. That looks nice.
Fine.
Nice and even. And then take it to the sewing machine and stitch on that line. And you just do that for all 4 of them. So let me show you. I haven't trimmed my threads yet, but here is 4 of them together. And that is half of our flower. So eventually we'll look to figure out these little leaves right here, but we are almost there. And here we have our lovely flower together. So really the final steps here, I need to, of course, trim my threads to make everything beautiful. But I first want to press these little, I'm just calling them leaves. I don't know what you would call them otherwise. I'm not super optimistic for how this is going to work, but I think, pressing certainly after you finish something is best practices. So you have a couple options to get them to stay open. The pattern says you can press them, which I'm doing right now. And actually, I think this would be a great opportunity for a clapper if that is all that you are doing to keep these open. There's also an option just to hand stitch a little tack at the ends to kind of help them stay open, or you have the option of just going ahead and doing a stitch to get them to stay down, like just stitching them around. I'm thinking I'm probably going to opt for that because I just love this fabric and I'd hate to lose that in the design or just it only be on the back. But I mean, it is still very pretty. I don't think though that, you know, if you want that full effect that ironing is going to do the trick, even with that clapper, there's just there's a lot of tension. I'm definitely having to work a little bit to get things open with just my fingers. That, you know, you saw the width of that foam, it's fairly thick. So that is my plan, but how great does this look? I'm so excited about it. This table topper finishes at about 17 inches in diameter, which is the perfect size to put a candle in the middle of. The display I saw at the shop also had some fun florals around it, so you can really get creative with how you want to display this. I think it looks great on my table and I cannot wait to bring it out during the fall season. I don't know if you noticed, but I took the extra fabric and made some cloth napkins because I actually didn't have any in my entertaining stash that matched, so I love this full set. As always, thank you so much for joining me in my craft room for some fun creativity together. It means the world to me. If you liked this content, be sure to subscribe for more and let me know by liking the video and leave me a comment. I really do try to respond to every single one of them as each new video posts. I hope you enjoyed making this project with me and it inspired you to make something of your own. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye-bye.